Welcome back everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lodestar News Network. Today we'll be covering the various types of clans and groups that you can expect to see in the various space games. Keep in mind this is by no means a comprehensive list, and some points could be put up for debate and are a matter of our opinions and conjecture. When it comes to the various types of clans that are out there in most of these space games, there are near infinite themes they can wear. However, most fall into a handful of different categories when you break them down. Today we'll be going over how to approach and interact with the various large entities, whether for better or for worse, as well as any potential merits or faults that are usually baggage for these types of groups. The most common type of clan you will see out there is the nation state. This clan will claim to try and do anything and everything the game has to offer, being fully self-sustaining, very rarely seeking outside sources for anything, whether it be ships or resources themselves. They tend to have large militaries in order to protect their assets and goals, and their overall goals will vary greatly, however, depending on whatever theme they are clothed in, though the standard goals are usually expansion, holding territory, and just generally being powerful. While nation-style clans are some of the most common, they can also have a very wide variety and some of the most wide variety of styles and themes for how they appear and how they function, ranging from the dictator-ran totalitarian state to the council-based democratic republic and everything in between. Where the clan falls in this spectrum can be theorized to be an outward projection of inward political beliefs and standards, which causes them to be as varying as there are people themselves. This form of clan gains more strength by having larger numbers in order to hold down their many occupations, territories, and ambitions. So the larger they are, usually the better off they will be. Whether this is just they strictly want to hold territory, or they want to defend other people's territory, numbers and skill are king, skill being second, because 5 skilled players will not beat 100 non-skilled players in these sort of situations, especially when the game incorporates some form of cap on ship size and power. This causes nation-state clans to have some of the heaviest stances on recruiting numbers, which can be one of their largest weaknesses, however, being that it's easy to inside them since they require the infinite mass of players being injected, fresh meat, new blood, however you want to talk about it. Due to this weakness, they usually try to soften the blow by having larger hoops that members have to jump through to join, followed by even further various levels of internal security to even further lessen damages spies could potentially do with various incorporated clearance levels and incorporating the real-life military's mantras of "do you need to know what you're asking?" All in all, these groups range from the weakest of groups to the strongest of groups, relying on stringent loyalty to the cause, large numbers of players and skill combined, and a very healthy ratio needed for that to further it whilst simultaneously keeping a watchful eye lest their own ambitions create holes in themselves. Shipmakers and industrial complexes are another of the most common types of clans you will find in almost any space game, allotted that the game allows for the production of ships and or structures. They tend to be the first go for most players who are looking for more of that strictly engineering gameplay experience. They don't really care about any combat, they just want to make cool ships and be surrounded by people who think the same. Most of their operations tend to revolve around crafting ships, writing code for ship mechanisms, and setting up contracts with various other groups in return for some form of payment. The drawback of the industrial style clan is they either have to devote some of their personnel to security, or they have to outsource it, which cuts into profits. The ratio of pirate clans and their own size and scale ever increasing the demand for protection. Usually it's hard to muster a large fighting force in these types of clans internally, since most of the people who join them are not going to be the hardcore PvPers, as those usually join either the nation states or the pirate clans. And it falls to the industrial clan to pay for protection from the nation states or various mercenaries and private military groups, which can spiral increasingly in the profit loss depending on their specific needs. Another large facet on operating an industrial clan itself is the relations they make and who they make them with. This is some of the most key components of running any level of company is who do you know, and how good do you know them, and who are your friends, and can they protect you, and will they be paying you well. This can either make or break a clan, as if they are heavily tied relationship-wise or contract-wise to another group that may be becoming incredibly unpopular, they could risk taking some of the heat from them. What I mean by this is their clients could be engaged in wars, whether it's singular large wars or repetitious wars, and if the clients acquire most of their ships from that company, many tacticians and strategists would recommend their factories as a target for destruction, as they themselves are the opponent's main infrastructure. Historically, in order to prevent large, protracted, drawn-out wars, the opposing force will go after the centers of civilian industry that support the war effort. And you heard me right there, civilian industry. You do not have to be tied to this clan, but if you are seen as its main infrastructure, you might as well be. And the distant factories would not be immune to this strategic stroke of industry crushing. While on the flip side of this situation, the many companies that could also bed up with large numbers of strong clans who could offer them either sanctuary or guarantee they will defend them. Usually though, this setup is rarely free, as sanctuary and existing inside a larger clan's borders can very often come with a lot of baggage on its own, with having to operate under their laws and also barring of business to their rivals, especially during wartime. Whereas the defense of them, whilst not existing inside their borders in particularly, could come at the price of providing free assets or other forms of payment, if not just typical currency. In conclusion of industrial clans, they very often rely on the good graces and mercy of the clans with the biggest sticks either in the game or at least their local area, or on them being themselves incredibly profitable or incredibly influential to take care of business on their own, one way or another. Mercenaries and other private military corporations are usually formed out of players who seek PvP, but do not want any ties to political systems found in nation states, and are more in it for personal profit than a greater cause. Due to them being more of a wild card, you usually have to check their honor code beforehand, as some mercs will go to the highest bidder and others will stick to their client indefinitely, while others still have bias and will not accept certain degrees of left or right politically aligned clients' jobs. Mercenary groups are usually on the smaller side as far as clan size goes, and are more rare than others due to the overall difficulty that you will see in growth and profit. The largest problems that a merc band will ever face is suddenly becoming vilified or even hated. This is mostly due to their income flow and overhead costs of living being highly tied to their reputation and their word. Whenever a mercenary band loses face, betrays their word, or overall is no longer an attractive client, they themselves can see doom on the horizon for their business. Merc groups also usually will want to stay small and close-knit because of the aforementioned reasons, as it only takes a few bad recruits ruining your group's name, and you are left with only the real options of disbanding, moving to new merc groups, or becoming full-on pirates to use your only real skill sets and ships that are tied explicitly for combat to continue to turn profit rather than go bankrupt. And leading from that, pirates themselves need no real introduction. We all know them, most people hate them. They play as the scourge of space, and are mostly filled with chaotic, evil-aligned players, whose only real goal is to destroy you, sell your goods, or just honestly make your day bad. Pirates can be any size or shape, from the large pirate fleet, commodores on the horizon, to the small guerrilla band of just simple squads that infiltrate and break things. They are effective in any size, however, and many don't care if you are online or offline when the grade goes down, depending on the code of conduct that they decide to play by. Though usually, with them being the chaotic evil players, we can usually assume that they are more fine with the offline raid, or just taking it whenever they happen to find you. They can be motivated by many things, whether it's fame, fortune, or simply killing people they don't like because they made a slight against them. There are few weaknesses for pirates compared to some of the other group types, as they can exist out into the void as wandering marauders or stealthy hideaways, and many times they do not have a base that you can simply wipe out and be done with them. Their few weaknesses, however, if they could even be called that, would be not being able to make port at certain places and being kill on sight. And that depends entirely on the ability to detect them in your game, and if they wouldn't just kill everyone at the port anyways as part of their crusade against civilizations and the various people that they dislike, which are typically player versus environment style players. Speaking of PvE players, the PvE city or construct builders come in many shapes and sizes, whether it is wanting to make one giant city, populate a planet, create halo rings, or various other megastructures. These ideals are, simply put, build lots of buildings or singularly large constructs, usually always for public use and labeled as an open project that anyone can join and help. These forms of groups are usually not people's main groups, but are more of an operation being headed by certain key individuals, typically clan leaders of different types. They are coming together for this project, and are various other interested parties who wish to participate. The main weakness of these types of groups is lack of independent funds, protection, and with really any single pirate or angry nation state being able to wipe them out, even if they have been able to organize some small level of security force, mostly due to their need of large PvP girth and people not liking sitting around at a construct that will take forever to build and not getting to actually play the game as they see it. The security has large holes, normally between being actually there, the shift workers that are supposed to be defending it actually showing up to defend it, and if it ever shows up in the game at all. And this is mostly because these groups usually only exist prior to the game's full release, typically seen in alpha and beta stages of games, even mostly more so just when the game has only a select amount of players playing in the game currently, with restricted access or other various barriers, and usually fall apart on game's full release due to everyone really just being busy with their own things and being more selfish towards their own clans. YouTuber fan factions are also another one of the larger forces that you could come across in space games. They tend to be a mixture of different skill levels of players, however they mostly are a form of Zerg faction, with mass hordes following the bidding of the YouTuber. The YouTubers tend to come off as strong or a size threat, however they are normally used to existence in their own private servers depending on the game, and tend to not do well when having to exist in the same spheres as the masses who may want to kill them or stream snipe them for clout. Without their admin tools to protect them, many of these types of groups will crumble under their own weight, even if their own home servers were labeled as PvP, due to their version of PvP not being the anarchy that you tend to see in a much wider game that doesn't have server-based experiences that a player could host. Inexperience of real PvP experience outside of their server, and ease of inciting or stream sniping them due to them trying to get as many fans on board as possible, ultimately is their demise when trying to move from a game that has isolated servers and isolated universes they can craft and cater whenever they try and move to a game that does not have those. There are a number of different miscellaneous types of clans that a person can make an argument for, and various subtypes even further to the ones I have already listed. So the list could go on indefinitely. If there's anything you think would stand out and not fall into anything I listed as a subtype, leave it in the comments below and debate it with each other on its own feasibility, whether it's strengths or weakness and whatever those may be. Also, what do you think yourself is top dog amongst the types of clans that I listed or others that you may have thought of? And do you disagree with me on any of my points I made? Drop that down below as well for some interesting conversation and philosophical debate. If you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe and let us know what else you would like to see. Anyways, that's all for this video. See you in the next one.